Hey everyone, and welcome back to College Conversations. My name is Jeff Sherrod. In this episode, I am joined with Laurie Kagay, and we're interviewing a couple students about the topic of international mission. Now, we've talked about this topic several times in the podcast. Specifically in this episode, we're talking about sometimes the anxieties that students and their parents face when they're thinking about the prospect of joining a mission school or even doing international trips. We talk about the safeguards that are present for an organization like ours, but also just recognizing that anything that we do to follow the Lord is going to have some implicit risk. Our desire is to both mitigate that risk and then also recognize that students have to have faith to step in, to believe, and to follow the things that God's called them to do. And in that, there's a safety. I think you guys will really appreciate this episode, and thanks for joining us, as always, for College Conversations. All right, well, excited to be back on College Conversations. This whole season, we're having a series of student guests come on, kind of hear from your guys' perspectives. So excited to hear from you guys today. Mark, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Mark Olivera. I'm from Laverne, Tennessee. It's about 40 minutes from here.
From Nashville, yep.
From here in Nashville. And I'm a third year at the Institute.
Awesome. Yeah, and Mark, you already had some experience from college before you even came here, right?
Yeah, I got a bachelor's degree from MTSU in 2020. And in 2022, I decided to come to the Institute.
Nice, man. Awesome.
I'm Olivia Beaverson. I'm from Paragould, Arkansas.
You're staying with some kind of, it's southern.
Yeah,
it's
southern.
country.
Is that how they say it in
It's country.
Paragould?
Oh, well,
Okay.
they do. I mean,
Okay.
it's deep southern. But I'm in my sixth year at the Institute.
We say super senior.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
super senior. Yeah, awesome. And we're excited to have Miss Laurie Kagay with us today.
Hi, everyone.
Laurie is the VP of Marketing and Enrollment here at the Institute. And so we are talking about, maybe just the way I say it, we're talking about potential anxieties related to international travel. This is not something that is unique to just one or two people when they're thinking about traveling internationally. It's also, for us, it's a part that's included in the program. So every student's going to have a series of 3 trips by the time that they graduate. Right. You guys have been on some of these trips before, so we're kind of excited to hear that. But I would say, and Laurie, you probably would agree with me here, this is the topic that comes up often for prospective students. Like, how is this going to work out? And what is that? Do I have to go? Just anxieties.
Yeah, I think it's becoming even increasingly that way. I think, or maybe I'm just hearing it more. It's reaching my ears. Maybe it wasn't before. But I am seeing students who were like, I like your school. I don't know about that part. Or my mom isn't comfortable with that part. Or my grandma has a question about that part. Or do I have to go? And so when I think for us, we see it as a highlight, but it also can sometimes introduce worry.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting tension to, I think, deal with, but it's nice, I think, on this episode to hear from you guys. And if you ever felt like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to kind of think through, how did that, when you guys first started doing this, doing missions in the school, how did it affect you, potentially anxieties? How have you worked through it on the backside, having done now at least 2 trips, even more? And then what advice would we give to people that are maybe just starting out? So maybe I'll just start with, what were your first thoughts when you found out that you were going to a college that had an international mission requirement? Like, what was the feelings?
I think I didn't quite know how to feel about it. Because I had been introduced to the school through programs like SLAM, where I would come in the summer and students living in Michigan, I would get some exposure to serving local communities here in Nashville. But on the international scale of things, I hadn't really considered before I ended up signing up for the Institute about even I hadn't necessarily considered doing missions long term. And so I think I didn't totally know how to feel about it, but I was like, well, that's part of what we're doing. So I guess we're going to.
I mean, you're real, I'm along for the ride.
Yeah, you're kind of a free spirit explorer type.
Right. So I was like, we'll see how that works. But I think that, that's it. It's interesting though, because my mom was not necessarily in the same boat, so she was had more concerns, I think. But I think that the more that I've learned God's word, the more it's less of oh, well, that's just what we're doing, and that's why we're doing it. But I know now, even the reasons biblically, as I've gotten more education in God's word, why it's important to make considerations.
Yeah, that's helpful because early on, if a parent's like, I don't know why you have to do that, you're like,
Right.
well, it's just required.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go any further than
Yeah,
that.
The school said.
Do you,
Right.
do you
The school
remember
said.
some of her concerns?
Oh, yeah.
What were they? Like,
They were so
give
dramatic.
us some samples.
They were like,
Hey, no shade to the moms here.
Yeah,
Okay?
no,
Like,
it's
just-
moms
it's
love
all
and care
love.
and nurture,
It's
and
all
it's
love.
all reasonable questions
Right.
and advice. So there's no like
No, yeah.
shame here.
Yeah, it
I'm a
was-
mom. We're all lovely.
Yeah, you guys are the best. I mean, I had applied and been accepted for the institute already, and then the summer before I came here for my freshman year, there was a demission going to El Salvador. And my mom was like, no, I don't think that's going to work. And I was like, okay, but if I save up all the money for it, then I'll like, that's the problem. That's the concern, that it's the finances.
Gotcha.
So I'll go. So I ended up saving up all the money. I got a job and I saved up for it. And then she still was like, no. And that's when we had more of a conversation to even figure out like what were her concerns. And a lot of it was safety. That was her biggest thing, was that she was really afraid. And she wasn't sure. She didn't have a lot of exposure to global outreach developments as a whole either. And so she didn't necessarily know, and I didn't know how to like even communicate with people what qualifications there were for even leaders that were coming that would be able to provide be able to provide safety and make good decisions. So, and I'm not sure where that fear came from in her necessarily. I think that it was just like scary, the idea of me traveling out of the country, because I'd never been out of the country before either. And so I think that there was just some fear around the unknown of all
Yeah,
that.
I believe it. Yeah.
I think it's a good story because you are like, well, I thought the concern was finances. So I
Yeah.
read the finances, but then I realized, oh,
Okay,
that
this
wasn't
is
the
a
whole
deeper,
thing.
Yeah.
But also, I think that's a helpful process to go to, too, to be like, well, I don't actually know what the fear was about.
Yeah.
But then to note, like, often when I'm talking to students or their parents, those are things I know. I'm like, we're not sending them out alone.
Yeah.
We're not sending them out without a facilitator.
Right.
They're not just like exploring
Yeah.
Africa. Like, this is not the kind
But
of
that
missions
does
that
almost
we're...
seem to be some
Yeah.
of the thought when you say international mission.
Yes.
People are like, all right, you are putting yourself in the most dangerous situation
Right.
possible by yourself.
Where
and-
we actually have been doing this a long time, and we have policies that will even say, like, even if either the World Health Organization or the U.S. government says, travel should be
Right.
reconsidered
Yeah.
in this area, we have it in our policy that we won't take students there.
Right.
That's that's our initial question is like, is everything okay in that country right now, and is our campus ready and are people there ready where students could go there and have a fruitful and successful time this
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
And we used to be always a yes, and but there's been things. COVID was one of them, but even other
Yeah.
things. Sometimes there's an epidemic in that region, and we have to say not this year.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a personnel issue. So we are like, looking at all those things.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I've found at least to tone down some of the imagination is
Yeah.
like, hey guys, they're not exploring. Mission doesn't
Right.
equal wandering.
Right. Climbing a mountain by yourself with,
Yeah. Yeah.
without safety ropes.
Right. Right.
Well, what about you, Mark? What were you thinking when you're like, oh, I'm going to a school that has a mission requirement?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, before even coming to the institute, I never thought that I would go on a mission trip abroad. I had been abroad to Peru and Mexico, but going abroad for a mission trip for like a month or a month and a half or however long to help service, it was never something that crossed my mind. But when I came to the institute and I wanted to learn the word, I wanted to learn God's word, and I saw that we have 3 required trips. I'm like, oh. I'm like, all right, we'll just cross that bridge when I get there. And so even like my first year, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna do a trip this year. And then somehow God wrote me into it, and
That's how
I
he
was
does
like,
Who
all
did?
right,
Who did?
God.
Yeah, that's how it works. I'm just saying, no one did that to you.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, I'll do this. And my parents, they're gonna be a little bit protective, but for the most part, they were super supportive of it.
That's great.
My mom, she raised us Christian our whole life, and so it's kind of like her dream to see us learning the Bible and now going and actually living it out. And my dad, even though he's not like religious or anything, he's just happy that we're serving people, like we're helping people out, we're doing something meaningful with our time. And of course, my mom, she worries a lot, but I'm like, you just got to remember, we're not going alone. Like you guys were saying,
Yeah.
like we got very capable leaders who
Yeah.
are going to give us direction.
Yeah. One of the things that, Mark, I know you've been on 2 trips now with the organization. One is summer internship, which you're talking about facilitation. That's a much more facilitated trip. This is often like the intro trip for us,
Yeah.
for students. Either sometimes they're coming right out of high school before they come to the Institute, or maybe after they finish up their freshman year. And that's, that's a kind of regimented trip. And then you also went on an immersion trip last year. What was some of the feeling? That's a less facilitated experience.
Which still doesn't mean no
No,
facilitation.
right.
Less.
It's just, a little
different.
bit less. And this is part of that growth that we want students to experience, like graduating them into more ownership, really, and responsibility as they work through the program. But maybe you can even just talk a little bit about like how was the feeling difference between going on that second trip, immersion trip, which is a little bit less facilitated compared to your first trip, which was more.
Yeah, because I would definitely say that I experienced anxiety before both of those trips. In terms of the internship, is like it's a new experience. You're going to another country, but I didn't feel as much because there was like a lot of facilitation there. Like every second, you're gonna have a leader there beside you, pretty much guiding you through whatever it is you're gonna go through. But with immersion, I know there's the added element of a little bit less facilitation. You're still gonna have a leader, somebody helping you out on the field. But there's also an added responsibility in what you have to do. And so I remember even before we even set out for the immersion trip, we had meetings, weekly meetings, months beforehand. I think we started having meetings in like January or February, and our trip left in May, I believe.
Okay.
And so we had that leader there telling us, all right, this is what you can kind of start expecting from your immersion trip. You're going to have like some sort of goals that you're going to be trying to work with. And it's going to be things that we can help you do. You're not all by yourself doing it. So again, it's like you have that leadership, but it's like, all right, how do I figure out how to do this?
Yeah.
And is it like, am I capable of doing something like this? Because I believe it was like a week or two before we had a meeting where we had like our actual goals for this immersion trip. And so we had the rest of the time before the trip to start preparing material, talking to people, gathering supplies, and all this stuff. And man, I was so stressed out. I was like, I feel like I don't have enough time to do this. And it was a smaller group as well, so that's another difference. We had 4 people going on this immersion trip versus the internship. I think it was like 25 students going, somewhere around there. And on top of that, it's like I'm going without my brother, who going on this immersion trip, this would be the longest time apart that I would have from him. I think it was like 6 weeks, and we had never been.
So for context, they're both in school here. The first summer they traveled together. So
yes, my brother
longest ever apart.
And you guys are tight.
Yeah, we're close. We're only 2 years apart, and I was like, I'm not gonna have my brother with me. And then these other members that I'm going with, I'm not super close with. It's like I feel like I'm going to a country by myself, even though that's not the case. But that's kind of like what I was feeling on the inside. It's like on top of that, now I have these responsibilities that I got to try to figure out how to handle.
Yeah, do stuff.
I was like, man, I am not okay right now.
Did you hit a point where you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this?
I think I did, because I remember there was this one night, like a week or two before the trip, and there was a party, not like a party, but like a get together at a student housing event. And I was like, I can't go to that because I'm just not okay. And so I like called 2 of my friends, and I'm like, I'm not going. I just can't go to that get together because I am stressing out right now. And at that moment, it's like, I don't know if I could get through this. But the encouraging part about it is that we live in a community here where your friends are studying the Bible as well. So it's like you have that moment with them where they can speak life into you, even pray for you. And so I was able to have that. Just continuing to share like my anxieties with my friends was something that helped me to get through that moment. I still had them leading up until we got there, but it was definitely something more manageable when I let people in.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Olivia? You had a point where you're preparing. You're like, I just don't know if I'm gonna be able to make this happen.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it was like most of my experience was actually. I mean, preparing for immersion was really interesting because I think preparing for internship, because it is so heavily facilitated, there's less like even like specific projects that I had to prepare for. There was still like spiritual preparations and meetings with leadership of the internships that where we would have like practical things that we could be working on for like getting in the right place spiritually. And I feel like those moments I wasn't like preparing for internship in that way. I was more excited than anything else. But then preparing for immersion it was different, because I think there was like, you just run into so many more practical, like frustrating challenges, like even having to like research and try to get a hold of organizations in other countries that have like in completely different time zones. And then you're like, so there's just very practical, like there's a lot more practical challenges.
Yeah, because for some of these trips, we're not just handing you the agenda.
Right.
We're trying to say, hey, part of your task is to also establish your agenda with the skills that you have. So sometimes you're reaching out to other organizations.
Right.
Like, hey, I want to come by and volunteer or meet with you. Yeah.
Yep. And I know like we did that for outside of the institute classes for immersion preparation, but there's also like essential experiences for vocational mission, which is like a class at the institute that's even for getting you prepared for immersion. And so there were a lot of assignments with that where I was like, I don't think I can do this. I was like, I just don't know. Like, I don't feel like I have enough direction. I don't feel like I have enough like clear answers of what's going to happen. And I think that again, there was just a lot of like, not like I think I really did feel like I had to have everything figured out. Like I had to know the exact plan and have everything figured out for whatever we're doing. But then in reality, after being on immersion, I think there was just so many things that you can't even account for that come up, like different, even relational things with people that you're trying to serve and with people that you're serving with. That there's just like so many things that came up where I was like, well, this is infinitely more complicated than I could have even like there's not like a single task that I could have done that could have helped me not help me prepare, but that could have
mitigated every possibility, right?
So yeah, like some of the we have like a list of objectives, particularly for both immersion trips. But it kind of brings you down to earth a bit. So it goes maybe from like, I was a part of this huge conference where we had a thing, there were all these people, and then it's immersion, and you're like, get on public transport, and go to this location, related to your occupational focus, and you're like just me and her, like that, it's so just crazy. Us, like, and so it's just a different feel in that way, or it's like have a meal at a house of someone your age, and sit with them and hear their stories, and so and you stay in one place, so you're not traveling even all over as much. It's one region, and it's testing your language skill,
which is so crazy because it is very humbling, I think, for sure, because it is like, even it's like, okay, we have a small project like this past immersion that I took to Uganda. One of our projects was like, okay, which I say small, and it was bigger, but it was like one of the things we were doing was helping to renovate an office space there. And I mean, comparatively to the projects that took place when the internship group was there, it was very small, and it took us like, I was like, this is so crazy how long this is taking, how like there's so many problems that keep coming up. And it got to a point where I was like, I just feel like I should be able to solve the problems, but they just aren't getting solved, and I don't know what is happening. And it really is like, it was very humbling because it slowed us down a lot, for sure. I think our team, and having to like even think through like, okay, what is the problem? Where is this coming from? What are we like? Yeah, it was. And so it is like, I think when you do have even smaller projects that you're going to focus on, maybe it like, I don't know. I think that there were so many more things that came up than I would have thought initially. But I think
when you see, like, I've heard Mr. Garner describe this too, but he's like, when you see someone that's really good at something, like for me, I'm like, you see a ballerina dance and it looks amazing. Like, you're like, you just spun on your like toe like 4 times in a row with your, and you made it look easy. But like sometimes on an internship, that's kind of how you feel. You're like, missions is awesome. And I think there's a gap because sometimes you don't realize these people have been doing this for a long time. They thought through all of these elements, and they made it look seamless. But you guys may not see all the months of preparation or all the people involved that like brought to that work. So then you go on an immersion, and there's 4 of you or 5 of you or 6 of you, and it's like this one room. And you're like, okay, we can do that. We can. And then you're like, well, I went to the store, but they said this.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the thing.
Yeah.
And they sent me there, and
Yeah.
it's dark now.
Yeah.
And, you know, like,
Yeah.
so it just is a shift in,
Yeah,
I think, perspective. sometimes.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is surprising for students and sometimes a frustration point is they're like, I wish I would have been prepared better.
Yeah.
Like everyone's going to say that to some degree. And as the educator on this side, I'm like, I try not to take too much offense, but I want people to recognize like the way that we're preparing is by preparing people.
Yeah.
And you can't just say we're preparing you for every single possibility.
Right.
We have to. This
Yeah.
is God's project,
Yeah.
and you are God's project,
Yeah.
God's workmanship. So there has to be work that's done in your own life to be like, hey, when I come across a problem, I approach it in prayer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work with the people that I work with love and truth telling and honesty and unity. And you'll find as that starts to happen, and I'm hoping that people get this when
Yeah.
they travel abroad, like I was able to do things I didn't even know I was preparing for because
Right.
it was a change that was happening in my own heart
For
that
sure.
didn't happen. And I think that's a great thing that starts to happen when people
Yeah.
really open their eyes to international travel.
Which I think is also helpful in terms of like preparation beforehand. I think that there is like, I'm really glad that the Institute does have like trips throughout your education even, because I know for me it was interesting because I was a COVID kid at the
Yeah.
Institute, so I came in and
what kid?
A COVID kid.
Oh, COVID kid. I heard
COVID.
COVID. Okay.
So I actually didn't take an internship until I think it was my third year
Yeah.
here. And so there was a lot of like classes, even community development classes and biblical studies classes that I had taken. And I knew in my mind, I was like, this is culminating to something. This is going to be applicable. And it was applicable in my friendships here already and in the work that I was doing. But then coming back from my first internship, and especially from my second internship, I was like, and even not only was I reflecting back on things I had already learned at the Institute, but in like classes I would be taking currently, I would have memories abroad to like pull from and even like think about, okay, like listening surveys, like that's something that we learned in some of our community development classes. I can see how that would have been incredibly helpful for me to do like in this situation on my first internship. And then I think that it really does like how they're staggered throughout our Institute experience. I think that has been something I've been really thankful for, because I have even seen like, I think like coming back from my second internship in 2023, I think, I had a lot of community development classes at the Institute that next year, and I just kept feeling like I'm not cut out for this. There's no way. I am not ready. And because I was thinking about all the people that we had served, and I was like, I can't, like, they're so precious. Like, I can't, I'm not, I'm like, this is serious. This is real. Like, I was like telling my friends, like, come on, we got to take this serious, you guys. This is real. That's real people that we're affecting on the other side of it. And then at the end of that year, getting to go back and then do an immersion where I was like, things are more complicated. I don't know. Yeah. It was helpful because I think that it is just like, I've been able to see how much like deeper I've been able to go and like even asking better questions before like the end of my undergrad even. So I've been thankful for that. But
that's awesome. Let me ask you this, Mark, let me address this to you. So, there's some anxieties before you go. Yeah. How does that change when you're on the field? Like,
what happened?
Yeah, what does happen? Like, not even on the backside, but let's say like you're there. How does potential anxieties change when you're there?
Yeah, so it was like we get to El Salvador. This specifically for my immersion trip. We get to El Salvador and we get to the campus, and it's like once you see the people's face that we're working with, it's like they're happy to see you. They're excited to see you. It's like all that anxiety goes away because it's like you're still with God's people. Yeah. These are the people you're going to be spending time with, getting to know, and even both of you guys benefiting from each other's presence, like serving each other and serving alongside one another. And so in that moment, it's like, wow, this is like God's family. I'm with God's family. So the anxiety in that moment kind of like drifted away.
Because you were even saying like part of it is like, I'm not going with all these people, but then you recognize they're already there. Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's like, it was just really comforting to, once you finally get to talk with the people and spend time with them, it's like, wow, I don't even know why I was anxious in the first place. But and also like in terms of like the responsibility of the projects, it's like, you got to remember we're not doing these works by ourselves. It's like this is our team. Like the people down there and the people I went with, like this is our team, and we're working to do these projects together.
Yeah.
We're not solving anything by ourselves. It's like
Right.
a collective effort, and you got to be able to rely on the people that you're with. And just even so, when I got there and just knowing like, all right, we got a team here, people who are all serving God's mission, all sharing the same values. It's like I really don't have any reason to be anxious.
Yeah.
I think that is a powerful point because, again, if we're like defining missions, it's not just like going and helping the people. Like Mark just described, you're going and joining
Right.
a larger team.
Yeah.
What God is already doing too.
What God is already doing, that you all are joint heirs of God's in this work. And so that's what we're talking about. Not just like going and serving and they're benefiting from what you have. You're like, no, that's my team. Like I'm joining in the work that's ongoing and with them. I know for you, you even had a lot of peers. So these just became even your friends.
Yeah.
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 Like-
So I think that's an important distinction too.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Missions is not just about you and you doing things for them. No, you're joining with a work that's ongoing, that's bigger than you. You're joining God's family.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, one of the things that I think both of you are saying is that, I mean, Olivia, you're saying like there is potentially some anxieties when you're there, but you're putting them, it's different because like on this side, I'm saying this side, like you haven't gone yet.
Right.
It's all imaginary, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do and what's going to happen. And then when you're there, you're like, we have this things to do and
Yeah.
the sun's going down.
Right.
Maybe there's some anxiety, but it's different, right?
Yeah.
Because it's, we're enacting. And,
Right.
and I think that I've never heard someone be super nervous on that side
Yeah.
other than just, I want to be responsible
Right.
Yeah.
with what God's given me with the time, make
Yeah.
sure that you are able to be responsible with it. Olivia, let me put you on the spot because you're a super senior, like you said. If you were to go back and talk to your mom again
Yeah.
now, and you were saying like, and they're like, why do you have to go if your reason is no longer because it's required? What would be some of the things that you would say now?
Oh, I mean, gosh, it's hard because I'm thinking through like without like we don't share a context. Even knowing what I know now, like I think with my mom, she doesn't necessarily like she does love the Lord, but she doesn't necessarily feel that same like conviction to serve the poor and to even like or to. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like if I were to go back and say it, I think that I would kind of start by even sharing some practical things like Miss Kagay had said that there are people who have been doing this for like many years and they're trained in this, and this is like one of the things that they've spent like the majority of their life doing. And so they have a lot of experience in that way. And then in terms of like why I personally like need to do that, I would just share with her that I do think it's something that God has called me to do, even though I might not understand it. And even though you might not understand it completely, I know that, that these are the people that God cares for and that he needs other people in the world to care for also. And I want to be a part of a team that is helping in that way. So I don't know. I'm just thinking through like it is kind of hard because it's like
Because there's not always a shared context.
Yeah,
for it.
yeah.
I'm with you.
yeah, and I think even still sometimes I think we've grown so much in our relationship and I do actually think a big part of that is because the more that I've been on trips abroad, the more that she's been even on the other side of experiencing like communications, whether it is from Miss Kagay or from the Institute, she's been able to experience like, I think some peace even in knowing like, okay, people are taking care of her. She's okay. She's going to be fine. And then she's got to hear testimonies on the other side of me coming back from those trips. And so I think that there's been, even though we might like have different trajectories in that way and maybe don't share like the same convictions, I think that she can see the fruit of what we're doing and what we what God's word has been doing in my life and in like the world at large as we get to serve people abroad. So I think that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. I think it's also like I've if I were to maybe even talk to other people I've talked to, or I've said, hey, talking to your parents, share some of those practical concerns. But also, I don't think, even if you don't share context, being able to say to someone, I'm a believer in I'm a person
Yeah.
of God's word, and God's word says, and then you were able to say, like, it's part of our historic mission to
Right.
be Abraham's kids,
Yeah.
and not just be concerned about being blessed, but being a blessing to the nations. Or Isaiah 40, Isaiah just says so clearly,
Yeah.
it's too small of a thing for Israel just to be Israel.
Right.
Yeah.
Israel was here to be Israel to the nations, like helping people to see that this is not just an adventure for
Yeah.
college students, but this is really central to
Right.
who we are
Yeah.
as believers, and mission has always been central from like day one. Like
Right,
Jesus
right.
did this early on, had to go through Samaria.
Yeah.
Not that didn't have to, but had to.
Yeah.
And had to meet this woman at a well.
And his final words to his disciples.
yeah, final words to the disciples: go.
This is what it is. Go.
Right.
Make disciples
Yeah.
of the nations.
Yeah.
And so it's just so central to who we are. And I think if even parents and people that we love, they start to recognize, like, I'm not into this just for adventure or for travel, or I have the travel bug, but this is part of what we are about. It's
Yeah.
part of God's heart. And sharing in God's heart means that we get concerned with the other nations. I think
Yeah.
that people seeing that even kind of resolve can help. Be like, all right, man, this person's on mission. Like, what are you going to do about it? Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about if you guys were to give some advice to maybe prospective students. Olivia, you've traveled maybe 3 times with us. Is
Yeah.
that what it is? Mark, a couple times. You're going this summer again, Mark?
I'm going this
Where are
summer.
you headed to this summer? What's the
To El
plan?
Salvador again.
Nice. Love that. Are you're staying with us?
Staying here, yep.
Nice. Awesome. Maybe if someone you're talking to a high school student who's a prospective student, or maybe someone thinking about joining a college like ours that has a missions program, what kind of advice you guys giving on this side?
I think I would tell them to not be intimidated, like to not be intimidated and not get in their head when it comes to, like, especially things like language barriers or different cultural things, because I know that was my first trip abroad. I think I missed out on a lot of opportunities that if I were to go back and redo it again, I really could attribute a lot of it to being really just intimidated by
Right.
feeling feeling like I wasn't gonna get the language right if I tried, and then just like feeling like I had to have everything right and I had to understand everything. I think that's where I would probably give advice along those lines to, like, if you don't understand something, it's okay. Don't think that it's bad right away. Like,
Right. Yeah,
like
that's a
ask
good-
some
that's a good word.
questions and, sit with it, pray with it. Don't be so quick to label something that's unfamiliar as bad. And try to talk to people.
Just try, yeah,
Just try. Don't feel
Make
like
mistakes.
We have
Yeah.
a student here who English is her 5th language, but she always tells us trying is free.
Yeah.
And that's like her phrase, but I always think of her
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
Like, it's free,
It's so
guys.
true.
It's
Free.
not much is
Yeah.
free. Trying is free.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would give something similar along the lines of just put your best effort forward and make sure that you're staying in the moment. Because getting into a new culture when you go abroad into another mission, it can be like confusing at first. Because like, wow, these people are very different from me, but that's not a bad type of different. It's like that's just the way they live their lives over there in whatever region you're going to visit. And so it's like you just have to put your best effort forward in like trying to get to know them, trying to do these things, because it's a learning process. Like internship is kind of like that introduction to missions, and it's like you're not gonna know how to do everything perfectly on internship. You will not do everything perfectly on internship
Or on immersion, probably.
Sometimes I hear students be like, I just don't want to make a mistake. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you will.
Yeah.
I'm making one right now.
By trying not to make one.
By trying
you're
not to
never
make
learning.
one.
Yeah.
I was like, if you don't make them, you wasted your time.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. The mistakes will come, and
Yeah.
you just gotta take that correction,
Yeah.
take it well, and learn from it. I know I had plenty of mistakes. We had a whole situation in on my last immersion trip in El Salvador where we were trying to come up with a way to speed up meals because we were taking way too long. And so my immersion team, being from the United States, we're like, all right, let's just have sandwiches for lunch, quick 20-minute lunch, get it done quick, in and out. And our friends over there, the Salvadorians, they're more indirect culture. And so they were kind of like, just like not really saying anything, but you
Yeah.
could see they disagreed with it. And a few minutes later, we get a message from our a person who was facilitating our immersion. And she tells us like, hey, they are mad at you because you're trying to make them eat sandwiches every day.
They are used to hot
But
food.
we got stuff to do. It's just food.
They're used to hot food, and we were just trying to speed things up because that's kind of like the American culture. Like, we got to get things done quickly in now. And she's like, you got to find a compromise between both of you guys because this is not okay.
Dude, great lesson. Great lesson.
Yeah, just people are going to make mistakes, but you got to learn from them.
Embrace it. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, well, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for joining us today, and looking forward to more testimonies, Mark, heading out. I mean, probably heading out soon here, right? Like, less than a month. Is that what it is?
Proposed date is May 17th.
Wow. So yeah, we're recording this like in late April.
Yeah.
Is that where we're
I'm like, what day is it?
Someday in late April. A lot of we have a lot of our students headed out this summer. Maybe like close to
Oh, we have 47.
47 of our
Oh,
students,
my
head out this summer. So
I
there's
don't
a
think
lot
we've
of,
had that many.
there's a lot of people
A long
heading out.
time.
So yeah, if you are listening to this, we would appreciate your prayers.
Yes.
No, there's a lot happening this summer, and God's doing a lot. And I think Mark, you said it so well. We're joining what He's already doing in so many regions. So
Yeah.
it's a great way of saying. So yeah, if you're hearing this and you're thinking or wondering about missions, man, join God.
Yeah.
It's like that's the best thing you could do in your whole life is join God.
sure.
Hey, thanks for joining us on College Conversations, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us today on College Conversations. Please like, subscribe, share this episode with others. If you guys have a comment, we would love to hear from you. If you want to learn more about our work, you can visit us at theinstituteforgod.edu. Until then, we'll see you guys next time.